Hi, my name is Christina, and welcome to Everyday Galilee. About 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Poland for a week to study John Paul II's lasting impact there. And while in Poland, I interviewed about 30 different people, and over the course of my interviews, one of the questions I asked was, which of John Paul II's personal devotions have most impacted you? And I thought this would be kind of an easy answer. I gave them examples such as John Paul II's Marian devotion, Totus Tuus, the new springtime of the church, the new evangelization, divine mercy, all of these different ideas and devotions that St. John Paul II had that impacted his life. And to my surprise, it kind of confused them, and I was puzzled all week long why this was such a confusing question. But over the course of the week, as I went through interviews with priests, religious, people that actually knew St. John Paul II, university professors, it became more clear to me why this question was so confusing. And one of the most helpful people that I talked to was a university professor where St. John Paul II actually taught. And he said to me, rather than answering the question, well, I don't think St. John Paul II had any personal devotions that he didn't share with Poland as a whole. And this really struck me because I looked around and the answer was so obvious I missed it. Mary was present in every church. There were images of divine mercy everywhere. The people I talked to often reminded me of the way that St. John Paul II talked as well. And this also brought to mind an interview I had with the Dominican priest who said that although he really looks up to St. John Paul II, it's not in the same way that we as Americans look up to him. He said that John Paul II is part of the family. He's one of them. And so while he does look up to St. John Paul, he doesn't necessarily study his teachings so much as has this understanding of knowing him, of being a fellow Pole. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, October is the month of Mary and the Rosary, and Mary is called the Queen of Poland. They honor her with big processions, with statues of her in her home, and they really truly take her on as their mother in a way that often American Catholics do not. Yes, we do have a devotion to Mary in the United States, and in fact, Mary is the patroness of the United States. But it's not to the same degree of enthusiasm as it is in Poland. Poland is a Catholic country, and even now in the 21st century, most of them go to Mass at least some of the time, and also most of them go to confession at least once a year. There's a strong presence of faith there, and I truly believe that in addition to their faith being strengthened by the persecutions they went through in the last century or so, also their devotion to Mary has been a huge source of strength for them. When St. John Paul II was just a young boy, about 7 years old, his mother died, and he kneeled before a statue of Mary and he said, "You must be my mother now." And that maternal Marian devotion carried him throughout his priesthood, and he devoted his life to following Jesus through Mary. And his papal motto, as well as his motto when he was a bishop, became Totus Tuus, entirely yours, Mary. St. John Paul II, whenever he wrote, was known for ending any document with a Marian note. And we too, as families, should have Mary this close to our heart. Because when we have Mary that close to our heart, she brings us to the heart of Jesus. Right now, we're in very difficult, emotional times, and in these times, there's no greater prayer to pray than the Rosary. The Rosary was St. John Paul II's favorite prayer, and he called it an exquisite prayer. He said it was exquisite in its simplicity and in its depth, because through that prayer, you walked with Mary to Jesus. St. John Paul II would say that you never have to fear being too close to Mary. Just as if you went over to a friend's house, you never have to fear getting to know your friend less if you get to know their parents. In fact, if you get to know a friend's family, you get to know that friend more because you see different aspects of your friend. By getting to know Mary, you get to know Jesus more. By celebrating Mary in this month of October, your family will strengthen your faith in Jesus. So I share this with you because Mary can be a great source of strength for our families here in the United States. One of my favorite images of Mary has her wearing a mantle, this huge cape with all of the children of the world, all the people of the world underneath her mantle, under her protection. And if we place our families under the protection of Mary, there's a fruitfulness and a faithfulness that's born from it because she is the closest to her Son. I once received the advice that in these times where it just feels like there's so much pressure around us, one of the greatest prayers to pray is the Rosary, because it helps calm all of those emotions, helps us get away from crisis mode and focus on Christ. And again, it allows Mary to gather us up into her mantle of protection, to bring us safely to her Son. So I hope you enjoyed this short story as well as some reflections on Mary from St. John Paul II. If you liked this video, please hit like below as well as subscribe, and I'll see you next time. God bless.